Hey everybody, it's Dark Guardsman. We're back with another video, and I spent the better part of this morning, pretty much from like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., working on rewriting the EMP. Now, you might be asking why I'm doing this and why I went through the process of rewriting something that really didn't need rewritten. It really just has to do with the fact that when I was diving down into the code to get ready to work on the release for the 1.12 version, I noticed there was a lot of things missing. One of the things I noticed was missing is we didn't have any real event handling for EMPs, so there was no events fired, and now we do have those. So what we had previously to the 1.12 update, I don't know what. We could have possibly had some pre-detonation events, post-detonation events, and so on and so on. Those will eventually come back as well. But now we have a pre and post for entities. Pre and post for blocks. We won't have one for a tile. It's assumed that if you're going to block the pre-detonation on the block, you're going to block it on the tile entity. We will eventually get one for items, and we'll probably get some special edge case ones that handle certain types of behaviors that'll be handled differently in a different way. Added to this, I recoded basically how the entire EMP works. For interaction, I am going to be going and recoding how the behavior plays out as well. So right now, the behavior works by, we basically just loop through a cube-based shape, and we limit it by a distance check, so we basically make a circle, or a spear, and then we simply go, okay, grab all blocks in that spear, hit them with a blast, and then we grab all entities in that spear, and we hit them with a blast. The weird thing is the entity blast is cube-based, where this is circle-based. I may actually flip this to cube-based too, because to be honest, it really doesn't matter. If you get hit by cube EMP or spear EMP, you're going to only be like off by like a 3 or 4 blocks to start with, and this will be more efficient anyway since we have to check per block, and it would kind of behave like Minecraft expected. But on the interaction side, what I went ahead and did is we switched over to using capabilities for everything. Now, capabilities was a system implemented at some point. I don't remember if it was in 1.9, 1.10, whatever. I haven't been paying attention on when the implementation was, but in 1.12, it exists and it's heavily used. So now we use capabilities for everything, which is this right here. So we can do tile entity has capability, get capability, then fire off our EMP code. I also have worked in a power degradation system, so eventually when I recode the EMP, and I'm going to recode it to behave like the ICBM 2 version, where it ray traces from start to finish, and then if you hit a wall that stops EMP, it will stop the EMP. Of course, the obvious reason why I'm doing this is so you can block EMPs, but there will also be other effects like overcharging, and you'll be able to do lightning effects like shoot lightning off of a metal block and hit a player with it. So that's been implemented now, so we have EMP through capabilities. We also have a little bit better improved EMP draining code. Now this doesn't support everything yet. I still have to go through and code the capability system for the power code. So right now the EMPs still don't drain tiles properly. We do now, however, drain power off of inventory. So if you have an inventory that had batteries in it or it had some kind of power tool in it, it now will be hit by an EMP. This also can degrade the power check. Power check is still not in place. Once again, that'll be done via the ray trace. But say you had an inventory full of iron blocks, you could degrade the power check with it. So that code's there. It's in place. Of course, we're going to have to code special logic for it, so it's not something we're going to be able to do right away. Added to this, we went through and did the same exact process to the entities. So the entities have the same exact check, so you can do a capability check on an entity and have it run the same code. You can do a drain check on it. There's tons of configs, by the way, so you're noticing how we get a config check here. And there's also the inventory check. So any tile with the head, or any entity that supports inventory, so minecarts, players. I didn't actually know this. Players have a capability on them for actual inventories. This is something that I didn't know has been there. And in 1.7, if you wanted to get the inventory on a player, you couldn't do player instance with inventory. You had to go player.get inventory, and you just had to know that that entity was a player and that he had an inventory. And this made it really hard to work with a lot of entities because you had special edge cases for every single entity that you were working with. And some used AI inventory and some didn't. Now everything uses the capability system, so we can go, okay, entity has capability, and actually do the code on it. To the configs here, I've added a ton of configs. So we've got a creeper check. A creeper check isn't finished. I haven't implemented finishing it, or I haven't finished implementing it. Words are a bit complicated today. I just got up here, and if you have to drink coffee. But that when that's implemented, you'll have an ability to turn that off. I also recoded the creeper charging effect to no longer be based on the creeper itself. It'll now hit it with a lightning block. So if you have a mod that blocks lightning from charging creepers, that'll go ahead and block it as well. But there's now a boolean there that will turn that feature off altogether if you don't want it. You can also turn off destroying missiles, missiles dropping items. You can turn off inventory looping. You can turn off draining energy from entities, draining energy from items. You can also completely disable entity checks and completely disable tile checks. So all that code's there, and that completely modifies the thing. And you don't have to edit that through the config. What you can do is go to options, or go to mod options here. Scroll down to ICBM Classic config, and then if I didn't mess up the naming here, you'd be able to click EMP. That's missiles, what that's supposed to be right here. So what? Yeah, I misnamed one of those, and they're all there. I will be translating keying these so that way you can figure out what these actually do. I don't know if you can translate key the tooltips. I haven't figured that out yet. When we figure that out, that would be done as well. But you can come in here and you can disable each one, so you can just completely, utterly turn off complete functionality for the EMP. This works for both the missile, the explosive block, though eventually will be a grenade for this as well, and then the minecart, and then the tower. So there is going to be 5 different items that you can use EMP, and you can work with all of them to actually disable the behavior. I'm not going to set it up to be individually based because the blast code is not based per item. It actually is an individual object that is then created by a handler that was then triggered by the missile or the block, and so on and so on. So all the code's the same there, so we're not going to do individual per item. I may let you disable individual items in the future when I get the config set up for that, but for the moment you've got complete control over the EMPs and how they behave, and they should support capabilities really easily. If you're a mod developer and you want to add support, it's now incredibly simple. All you have to do is make a capability that uses the interface that I've got developed up here. Let me go find it real quick. Oh yeah, right here, EMP interface. This has a lot of stuff in here. Most of this you don't have to worry about. The only one you really need to implement is this on your entity or tile, or if you're using an item, there's a special version just for the items that will then pass in the container so you can get access to the player. So if you want to electrocute the player based on the item you have in your inventory, that is then available. So we got that. There's also some debug stuff here, so if you're making tooltips for like things like Whala or whatever the replacement for Whala was in 112, there's stuff in here for get EMP resistance and is EMP resistance flat. These are only used for display because when the actual power check code is run, it simply just wants you to return a flow value, and it does not care how that flow value was calculated. Just return it and you're good. There's also another check down here that if you really want to, this will turn off the inventory looping. So if you have an inventory tile and you don't want the EMP to auto handle that, say you handled it on your own through a much more efficient method than what I've got, you can then say, okay, return false on this so that way it doesn't auto loop the inventories. That code relays back to here when it does do inventory. There's a do inventory check here. And this one will go and check to make sure that whether or not you wanted it to loop. That will also probably play into a lot better effects, so we'll probably do the armor checks that way. And I'll throw more interfaces in here. This is pretty much a sum all interface, so you're guaranteedly not going to use everything on all your machines and tiles. But I decided I wanted to make a single interface that covers the block, tile entity, item, and whatever else we decide to support. How the blocks are going to be supported, so some of this guys probably actually know how the capabilities work. Go, wait, blocks don't have capabilities. Well, that's obvious they don't. We were looking at how to do it, and we decided, okay, it wasn't advisable to put an interface on a block, and it wasn't advisable to put it on a block state. So instead, we're going to have a registry, and I have to still implement this, where you'll register your capability handler to the block, and then this will just run. And then with that handler, you'll go, okay, I applied this, or so on and so on. This will allow multiple capabilities to be registered per block, and they'll all fire. And what will happen is we'll add all the values together and average them, or we'll just pick the lowest value or highest value or something like that. So there'll be some kind of check to allow all of them to run without interfering with each other. And of course, if you don't like that, then we do have the event system that I showed earlier. So if you want to use the event system, the post or the pre, to do all your EMP work, that's there. You can't, however, change the power at the moment. I may make another event fire for the power check if requested. I'm not going to implement it unless it's requested, simply because I'm already firing 2 events per block and 2 events per entity, so that's a lot of stuff that gets fired. So for an EMP blast that say we end up doing like a 10 radius, which would be basically 21 from the center. So 21, yeah, 21 times 21 times 21. So we're looping basically 9,261 blocks. So I'm firing off basically 18,000 plus events. So if we add another one to that, which I think I could just do 1.5 times that, yeah, we end up basically firing off 27,000 events. So yeah, only gonna do that by request. Entities is not such a big deal, so if you do want some entity events there, so I probably will do those. And that's been about it, only explaining how the code's working here. Now when it comes to the actual in-game stuff, I don't have a good way to test this. I do know the missiles work because I accidentally broke the missiles here earlier and they were dropping no matter what. So I do know those checks work, and I actually forgot to show that off, so let's do time, set, day. I'm gonna do that real quick before I tab back out. So because of the capability system, we were able to move a lot of the edge cases out of the EMP class, so they're no longer there. There was edge cases for a little bit of everything. There's edge case for the for missiles. Missiles now have their own capability that is attached to the missile. That is an instance of that IEMP receiver, and it's actually a subclass of EMP kill here. So what this is done, so I get the receiver here. When it applies EMP action, and it actually does the action, I then set dead down here. And then in this version, we'll override that and we kill the missile. Of course, there's a config check to allow destroying missiles here. There's a config check to allow destroying the drops. And then, of course, it still always sets it dead. And it does some basic checks. Is exploding, is alive. I had to go through and fix the is exploding part because apparently when the missile actually explodes, it wasn't setting itself as dead and it wasn't tagging itself as exploding before the missile actually went off. So it was actually still allowing drops and everything else. That's been fixed. And on top of this, we have a capability for everything else. So here's the creeper capability, that's there. I still have to implement it. We have one for inventories. This is used by the EMP currently in order to actually trigger the behavior for the capability. At least it's supposed to be, so I may have to go back and work on that. We then also have a kill one, which is used by the explosive right now. So any explosive block that's in the world and that's currently getting ready to go off, if an EMP goes off, it will disable. We might be able to test that here in a second. And we got EMP Universal, which this one's going to be attached to, it can be attached to basically any power tile you want to work with. And what it does is it pretty much runs the clear code. I was going to automatically attach this, and I decided in the actual EMP code I was going to handle that edge case directly, because there's no easy way to apply a capability to a tile or entity based on the existence of an already existing capability. So if you wanted to say, okay, if this machine has an RF capability, then I want to attach my capability, that's not the easiest way to do. There is ways to do that, but not cleanly, as far as I can tell. So we won't worry about that. We're just going to run edge case here. So let's find the blast EMP. So yeah, edge case. Yeah, I do have to do the inventory one. So I did check capability, and then I accidentally passed back the EMP capability. So this code could actually crash. So we're not going to worry about that in this per the second. But what we're going to do is we're going to trigger off a block here, and we're going to check to see if we can stop it. So I know the antimatter blocks have one of the largest delays on triggering. So we're going to try this. If this works, then I think we're set. And it's dead. So yeah, EMP code works. I'll probably come back showing it working on inventories when I actually get that code finished, because right now there's not any real handlers for that stuff. It will loop the inventory items, it will call the EMP per item, but because there's no actual drain code to drain power yet, that has been updated for 1.12, it doesn't work. So we'll get back with another video with that. But it's, yeah, I'll see you guys later.